My name is Monica Ndumbi. I work for Population Services Kenya as a senior manager. I run a project called Accelerate. This is a project which was born from the International Corporation of Population and Development, whereby we did the pronunciations during the ICPD at 25, and it is supported by Danida. Today we are going to be talking about the 16 days of activism, which run from 25th of November of each year and end on 10th December of each year. Okay, there are signs of GBV in patients, and usually patients are the people who are just coming from the community. So in healthcare settings, and especially what you are doing within the 13 counties that we support, we make sure we do what we call our whole site orientation. Our whole site orientation is where you take everybody through GBV and how to identify somebody right from the gate, including the watchman, the person walking in, so that from the gate to the main reception area, people are able to at least filter and see who is a gender-based violence patient. Then from there, we are also able to direct them. We have very clear pathways from the gate where you are directed. Maybe there's a gender desk, or at least there's a GBVRC. A GBVRC is a room which is set aside where the GBV patients are seen, or at least to the clinical area where we screen them and we see them. From there, at least you will find a clinical person who has been trained, a nurse, a clinical officer, a doctor, a psychologist, somebody who has been trained on how to handle and also how to take you through and to identify the deeper needs that you have. Apart from the fact that we have the whole site orientations, we also have the gender desks, and we also have them trained. From trainings, they are also able to be trained and taught how to identify these patients right from the beginning of the continuum of care, from the gate to the exit. Oh yes, we have what we call the screening tool. This is a tool where you are taken through as a client. Once people identify the signs that we teach them, they take you through the tool, and it is like a screening tool where they can now find what type of violence and whether it is true that what they have identified is true. And once they identify that it is a violence, then there is also an algorithm. An algorithm is like a protocol that is put in place where you know exactly stepwise, step to step, what you are supposed to take a patient through so that you can give them the best treatment. There's a continuum of care. There's a very specified continuum of care for the victims of gender-based violence right from the gate when they get to an entry to a health facility. So at each point of care, there is a specified package which they receive. So we make sure that when they come to casualty, they first go through the algorithm, which is the first part of the care. Once they are finished with the algorithm, there's also the counseling part. After counseling, there's also the connection to the access to justice, where we link them to the paralegals. We also have access to free legal connection with the people like FIDA. Those are also funded by the Denmark in Kenya. And we also have the ones who can afford their own lawyer. We link them to the legal. Then we also have the support to link them to shelter. If there's a shelter, if there's that, depending on the criteria of the person who has been a victim, there's a shelter for children, there's a shelter for women, and there's a shelter for male. Or if there's not that specific, at least we link them to a safe place. Like in our case, we also connect them with the GVRC centers within the country and also within the shelters for the counties that we work in. Survivors, once they come into the system, the first thing you do is counseling, and that becomes the entry, because from counseling you first identify what kind of a survivor this is and what kind of a package you're going to give them. Once you already identify this is a survivor who has gone through this kind of violence, because it's also a big set of violences, so many violences which make gender-based violence. It could be sexual, it could be intimate partner violence, it could be defilement, it could be all that. So once you counsel them in the beginning and you identify their needs, you first treat. After treatment, you return them now to what we call the psychosocial support groups. Psychosocial support groups are purely counseling basis where people are offloading the baggage, and within time they get to also meet the other survivors who are going through the same, and through like 10 to 12 sessions they get to do a graduation. That means you have already finished the counseling sessions and now you are ready for graduation. You have already offloaded your burden, and apart from the treatment, you have either connected to the access to justice and all that, and you are healing. In fact, in some counties, we are already doing graduations. Like in this December, we are already doing 2 graduations, I think for Nairobi and for one for Mombasa. So it is a real, it's a set criteria. It's also one of the protocols in the management of GBV, where counseling is all set on its own. We have psychosocial support groups which run for 10 to 12 sessions, and we get them graduated, and reintegration to the community is also very important, because it's a person who was blacked out and now wants to go back. We also have the concepts of the shelters and also those safe spaces and safe homes where you can slowly reintegrate them back to the community without having to push them back directly to the people who are the perpetrators in the first place. Basically, in our country, there are 2 main trainings for GBV. One is on the clinical management of gender-based violence, and the second one is on forensic management. Early in this year, when gender-based violence was taken over by the NASCOP, there was a nationwide training, and we benefited from our counties. Each county, we earned 70 OTs trained as master trainers. We also got the opportunity to get all our officers trained as TOTs. So apart from the training, the classroom training, we also do the mentorships and the OJTs when we are doing our support supervisions. The other one is on the management of the forensics. Forensic management is a very key thing in gender-based violence management, because you realize you really have to preserve the evidence, which is eventually what makes you to have the access to justice. So these are trainings that we are also just cascading through mentorships, and we have not yet done the classroom trainings on this, which we are planning to do in the coming year. In our settings, the best way to stay updated on research is through disseminations. And disseminations is where, like in our setup, we have already research, we have several research questions. And we also have research counties that we are carrying out within the Accelerate program. That is in West Pokot, in Narok, in Kilifi, and in Garissa. So you carry out those disseminations, you give them back the feedback, and they plow back the evidence into the recommendations. The other way we do is in conferences, that you go to find out what people have found out from their presentations, and we try to attend as many as we can, and also go and present the papers. Like recently I was in Rwanda, I represented the first round of research for this program in the CPIA conference. And also we have had a lot of opportunities, like the RNHK conference, which was in June this year, and we were able to present our findings for the research. Other research findings, especially also maybe nationwide and everywhere, we get through updates from the government. The government has updates, and whatever has been incorporated into policy, also into guidelines, we get it through SOPs, and also we get it through those small dissemination forums, like during in charges meetings, where you get everybody at a sitting. And we also get to read widely, even to incorporate what has been found, to iterate our programming and ideation. In our program, mostly we work through the government, so we support the Ministry of Health, that is the Division of Reproductive and Maternal Health. We also support NASCOP, who are now the ones implementing the GBV. So most times we are involved in the high-level TWGs, those are technical working groups. We sit in those spaces. We sit in the review of policy spaces, like we are sitting in the review of the Adolescents and Young Persons Reproductive Health Policy Review. We also do domestication of the GBV policy. We also meet in integration spaces, like where we are integrating the family planning into GBV. We are a member of the FP 2030 consortium, and I also sit in those forums where we discuss all the 8 indicators for this country and the commitments for the country. Same, we're also part of the ICPD 25 promises, which are meant for this country. We are tracking them through NCPD. We help them to track all the commitments in all the counties and in the country at large. There's being a program that was born by the ICPD 25, and we also help them in reporting. Apart from that, we also do trainings. We train at national level. We do support supervisions. We sit in those spaces where they make the decisions. We bring in the technical part, how we can contribute as members of those technical spaces, and especially in the TWGs and the meetings. This is cascaded to the counties because you realize we have 13 counties we are supporting, and all the 13 governments of the counties, we sit in the TWGs, we do the trainings, we cascade, and we bring in also the updates there.